Hey folks, John Boym here. Let's Talk Beef podcast. Coming at you in the right in the middle of the Midwest muddy season. It's getting warmer, snow's melting, so that's good. But when snow melts, that means a lot of mud. So dealing with that, starting to calve out heifers, and it's going well so far. But just got to deal with the mud. So I hope everybody else is handling it all right. And stay safe, guys, and make sure you get those babies up and going. So good luck to everybody out there. This week for the podcast, this is a little bit older one. It's been a while since I've talked with these guys, but finally got to this podcast. It was a good conversation with Neal and Amanda Sorenson of Powder River Angus in Spotted Horse, Wyoming. I was kind of trying to find somebody in Wyoming and wasn't having very much luck, and reached out to another guy that I knew up in Montana, and he was able to hook me up with some people. So Neal and Amanda were very generous and let us come out there, and unfortunately it just didn't work out to stay there and really get to see their operation. But so we got there and met and greeted and sat down and did the podcast. I was only there for a handful of minutes before we started recording. So just the way it went, it was a great conversation. Had a lot of fun meeting them, and a beautiful ranch. Definitely want to get back out there someday and see it again and maybe get to their bull sale. But I think you'll really enjoy this conversation. Neal and Amanda were great people, and it was a lot of fun. So and just before we get to the podcast, I just want to say thanks, guys. I really do appreciate all you guys downloading and listening. It really means a lot to me that you're liking what I'm putting out there and listening and leaving comments and ratings and all that. So it really does mean a lot. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to continue to give good content for you guys to keep listening. And if you got any ideas or want to be on the podcast, just send me an email or text or something, or I'm hoping to have my website up and going here soon, so you can drop me emails and whatnot from there. So thanks so much, guys. I really do appreciate it. And now here is Neal and Amanda Sorenson of Powder River Angus. So this is Spotted Horse, Wyoming, and this is Powder River Angus. And I'm with Neal and Amanda Sorenson. And so we just met like about 17 minutes ago. But so is this, I guess, just kind of a little introduction, Neal. Just kind of start us off, a little introduction about yourself.
Well, I'm Neal Sorenson, and I was born and raised here.
Okay.
And so my dad bought this place, I think, in around 1974. He was raised on a place about 10 miles south of here, which was my great-grandfather's homestead. So we still lease part of that, and my uncle leases half of it. And then prior to that, my great-grandfather homesteaded on the Clear Creek and where the Powder River meet. And that's where they originally homesteaded in the 1880s, like 1884, I believe. And so, and then his son homesteaded where my granddad's place is, and then Dad bought this place. And since then, Amanda and I have bought a small place to the east of us, and we just bought one kind of to the north of us. So, we've added on a little bit. And we also lease a lot of land. We probably lease as much as we own.
Yep.
We put up a lot of hay. As a kid, my dad grew a lot of wheat, oats, things like that, but it's pretty much all farm grounds in hay production now. So that's kind of the basic history of it.
Okay. Amanda, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Amanda, and I grew up in southeastern Wyoming, about 60 miles north of Cheyenne, on a ranch. And I'm fifth generation, and so is Neal. And I can't even tell you when our place was homesteaded, but it was many years ago. Probably about the same time.
Yeah.
So, we're both ranchers. We met in college, and we, I guess it was your dad that said that, well, where I grew up, we always kept really good cow records, production, and what the cows were doing, and so I was kind of into that. And Neal's dad said, well, I guess if you guys want to keep these records, maybe you should get some registered cattle. And we're like, well, maybe we could. And we
did.
And we did. We drove to Montana and looked at some, and Ended up buying pears out of Colorado. Where was that, Longmont? For, what did we get them? $800 a pair.
Or 850,
Or
yeah.
$850. And we bought a potload of registered cattle out of there. It was a dispersion.
Mm-hmm.
And we started doing it, and we've grown it to about 600 head of mother cows, and
Wow, cool.
it's been an adventure, I guess.
I'm sure it's its own adventure for sure.
Yeah.
So where does your family originate from? Like, when your great grandfather homesteaded, was he coming from Europe somewhere? Or
Yeah, they came from Denmark.
Denmark.
Yeah, and I know there was a Danish settlement in Minden, Nebraska. They spent some time there, and then I think an agent put them up. It was prior to statehood, but they homesteaded on the Powder River and the Clear Creek, because there's water there.
Yeah.
And he worked for some bigger ranches and broke horses and did dirt work, irrigation projects.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I say, they had a stage stop between Arvada and I think Broadus, and they kind of ran a roadhouse, and that was their major source of income. And so I don't know if it was a railroad, but some technological change stopped that income. Didn't work out anymore. They actually sold that original homestead, moved to Oregon, and my great-granddad came back when he turned 21 and homesteaded on Horse Creek, which is the one that's about 10 miles south of
Really?
us. So
where in Oregon did they go?
I'm not sure, somewhere in the Willamette Valley, but I'm not sure exactly.
Why? What was it like? Why Oregon?
I
No
don't
idea?
recall. I should ask my dad, because he would know.
Yeah.
And
That's
I should
interesting.
know, but I don't know. But I mean, the reason was that the roadhouse wasn't, a viable business at that point, and that's why they chose to sell and leave. And then I guess my great-granddad, he really enjoyed Wyoming and came back. Homesteaded again in about 1909.
Okay.
And so, which is unusual. I don't think that happened a lot.
Yeah.
But that's how it worked. And
That ranch, it celebrated, its 100th back in, I guess, 2009.
10 years ago.
Yeah, they had a big family get-together and community-type deal where it was just to recognize it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that'd be my great-great-granddad was a shipbuilder in Denmark, that
wow.
was his trade, and so he was a very good carpenter. Those genes have since must have been dispersed, because I'm not a good carpenter, but
No.
he built log cabins, and they would hand hew logs, like cottonwood logs, because that's what's available, which is not a good wood to work with, because it twists.
Yeah.
But they would build dovetail corners, and he built a lot of cabins for other people. They did whatever they could to kind of make a dime.
Yeah.
And so there's a very good representation of those cabins. It still stands, of the family that owns the ranch now. It's the Gibbs family, and it's a beautiful, beautiful log home, and just stood there for a long, long time now.
Wow, cool.
Their original homestead, because the Powder River will flood and change course, it'll move a half a mile one way or the other, and it took out the original homestead, but one that they built for a neighbor still there and in very good shape. So,
That's cool. So your great grandfather came back and homesteaded, and so then he had your grandfather at some point. So how many were in that group of kids?
My grandfather was the youngest of three, so he had
which I feel that's rare for only 3 kids.
Yeah.
Back in that time, I was expecting like a number of 13.
Yeah. And then so his older brother, and they're both passed away now. All 3 of them are, but he had a ranch south of Arvada, and then their sister, she lived in Billings. So my great aunt lived in Billings, and so my great uncle's place is still in operation. My cousins run it now, near Arvada, and
So like the generation before his grandfather, that one, there was a lot of kids in that family.
Yeah. And they
Quite a
had a
few
lot
girls.
of daughters, yeah.
But most of them stayed in. Most of them stay in Oregon?
No. They married, and it's
Just
kind
went
of
up and
funny.
down the creek.
Yeah, up and down the creek. I guess because of proximity, but
Yeah.
so yeah, we have a lot of relatives, and it gets so distant in the past, that, and a lot of them are still there, but distant relatives. So my ancestors
Yeah.
married up and down the creek.
Okay.
So
So your great grandfather had 3 kids. So I'm already confused. So your grandfather bought this place?
no, it'd be my dad.
Your
bought the
dad. Okay,
place
so
where
where
I'm
did your
at now.
grandfather go then?
He lived and died on the ranch
On
that's
that-
10 miles south of us that they
Okay.
homesteaded in 1909.
Oh, so he took over that ranch?
Mhm.
Your great grandfather's
And
ranch?
he added on to it a little bit.
Yes, and then after he was in World War II, and so he, I think, was an airplane mechanic, but he was a school teacher prior to that, so he did some school teaching, and then he served during World War II stateside in California, was an airplane mechanic. Met my grandmother somewhere in there. Actually, she's from Pasadena, California, but
wow.
I think they met here because they had moved up here. But at any rate, when they married, they come back to the ranch.
Okay.
And I believe my great-grandfather bought that place for my great-uncle while he was serving during World War II. He was a bombardier in a bomber squadron, got shot down 3 times, and
Wow.
got put in a prisoner of war camp for a year
Whew.
in Germany and survived it. Kind of,
I
Yeah.
can't even imagine that. Wow.
he was pretty,
He was a character.
yeah, he was quite a character. He was very thin when he got out, but he survived it. It probably changed him, but
Oh,
he
yeah.
was a colorful character.
Yeah.
And,
He boxed a lot too.
and he'd learned to box while he was going to college, and during the Depression, he said you get paid $1 if you just towed the mark and fought somebody, and he said he'd get beat up pretty bad. And somebody said, you can win more money and learn to box a little better, and they taught him how to box. And then in his military service, this is my great uncle that he'd box exhibitions just to entertain the troops, So they would they'd bring up Australian, English boxers, the best they could produce, and then there was the Navy, Army
Yep.
deal. He was in the Army Air Corps, is what they called it then, but it'd be the Air Force now, and yeah, he was a colorful guy with a lot of good stories, and he trained horses, loved horses. Very interesting guy. And,
So how many siblings are in your dad's family?
so my dad is the oldest of 4, so he
4.
has 2 brothers and a sister.
Okay.
And my uncle, of course, still operating on my granddad's place. He's the second in my other uncles in real estate, and he's also been in the oil and gas business. And my aunt runs a construction company, and now they do primarily traffic control
Okay.
for other construction companies. So
Yep.
that's what my dad's siblings do.
So your dad, was he naturally the rancher of the siblings, or?
He went to the University of Wyoming, got a degree in range management, and they.
He worked for the state of Wyoming for a little while.
Yeah, he worked for the state of Wyoming for a number of years. Appraised state lands for their AUM carrying capacity.
Yep.
And so we have a widely different range of carrying capacities in the state of Wyoming. You'll go from the red desert, where they get hardly any rainfall, to
Sheridan, right outside of Sheridan, where they
where it's really good, so you had to set how much carrying capacity the land had. That was in the late 60s. And I think during that work that he found this place, it has a state section on it that he set the AUMs on, and I think back then he actually sent her a letter, and he was a junior. My dad's name and my granddad's name, both Robert, and she thought she was talking to my granddad and they knew each other, and she said, absolutely, I'll lease it to you. Well, then she found out it was my dad, and he's like, well, I know your father, so if you're anything like him, we'll get along fine. And so we actually leased it for a year, maybe 6 months or a year. It wasn't very long, and she passed away.
Oh, wow.
And he had an option to buy it, and he exercised the option, or the option of the right of first refusal.
Yep.
So he bought it. And,
Okay.
and when he bought it in the early 70s, it was when the coal mines, which we have a lot of coal production in this county, and they were buying ranches up, and it would push people north. So he paid a lot for it, because at the time they were trying to, there was a lot of pressure on buying land at the time. So
Yep. So did he always want to was ranching what he wanted to do?
Yes.
And so he was just had
Yeah.
jobs because he didn't have a ranch at the time?
yeah, I think they 100% financed it, which they won't do that today. And he said, I wanted to ranch, and his boss said, this job will be here for you if it doesn't work out. I thought I had nothing to lose, and
Yep.
so.
Because how big was your granddad's operation?
Oh, I think it's about 5,000 acres. I'm
Yeah,
not
about
sure
6,
exactly.
I think.
Maybe 6,000 acres. There's a lot of BLM on it too,
Uh-huh.
but
How many cows is that? I mean, I don't... 6,000.
Oh.
How much can you run on that?
we summer about 100 head of cows over there.
About 200 year round, probably. 250
Yeah,
maybe.
you'll probably run about 200 cattle, and it's really rugged, and water's kind of tough.
Yep.
So it limits your carrying capacity.
Neal's dad, he farmed a lot. That time they did a lot of wheat farming and
Okay.
that sort of stuff, and he was.
My grandfather farmed a
Yeah.
lot too,
Okay.
and they both enjoyed it a lot.
Where I grew up, we didn't farm at all. We were strictly cattle, but
So your grandfather, was it just commercial cows, or kind of how did...
Yes, and he ran almost strictly Hereford cattle.
Okay.
very
seems-
slow Herefords.
Yes, and her family was commercial outfit too, and they ran primarily Herefords, which
up
was very
until
common.
Probably the 70s, and then we started to switch. We went through a Simmental phase, and that
Didn't last long.
didn't last long. No, you don't put Simmental bulls on little Hereford heifers. That didn't work.
Not
My
back-
dad got
not-
really good at C-sections.
Not back then,
Yeah,
that's for sure.
yeah, exactly. And then they started to change over into the Angus, and they were pretty much straight Angus by the time I
Yeah.
left there. And they still are.
Mm-hmm. So your dad then was running Herefords as well?
Well, yeah, he started, actually he farmed almost primarily and leased it out for, I think, until 1978. And then he decided he wanted to buy his own cows, and we bought the neighbors. It's right across the fence, and they were black and black baldy cows, but primarily black. And there was probably some Hereford influence in there, I'm sure, black baldies. But
Yep.
my dad tried Simmentals as well,
Yeah.
probably in the early 80s.
Yeah.
And he tried Charleys and Gelbies.
Okay.
So, and there was a lot of calving issues, great big calves, and then they didn't have a lot of vigor, didn't get up and go, and then he tried those three, and then he's like, I'm never going to use anything but an Angus bull ever again.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was a commercial guy, and then we told you that Dad said if you want to keep records like that on your cows, you should be in the purebred business, and I guess we did what he said to do. We tried it, but we did experience some of the, and there was good and bad to all those breeds. It's just I personally kind of like the Gelbies the best that Dad used, but I wasn't a fan of Simmentals or Charleys necessarily.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of growth and performance there too, but not a lot of maternal in those breeds. And,
Yeah. I like those Gelbie cows. I think that's a very underrated breed out there.
oh yeah, and they were really, really stout too. And they probably, from just my perspective as a kid, they were the best at making better females when you had the Gelbies as compared to the Simmentals
Yeah.
or Charleys, and still have a lot of power and growth.
Yeah.
But You can get all that in the Angus breed. You can get that kind of growth and power and not have calving problems and have a good cow at the end. So
Yeah.
I'm, of course, partial to Angus. So.
So how many siblings do you got?
I have 2 brothers, and I'm the youngest of 3. So my oldest brother is an electrical engineer. He lives here in Gillette, which we're about 40 miles north of Gillette, and he works primarily in the Powder River Basin, which is where all these big coal mines are. And but he also travels all over our country, Canada, Australia, all over the world, primarily working on drag lines. It's usually DC power, and he specializes in it and has done very, very well with it. My other brother lives in North Carolina, and he is a contractor, a general contractor. He kind of specializes in doing rehabbing old homes, like colonial style homes down the East Coast. A lot of history there. He really likes that. He learned that from his brother-in-law, who kind of got him in the business. But it's a big business now. It's
yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, he's got a plumbing business. He's very busy and doing really well. So he used to own a bookstore prior to that, and done a lot of things, but currently it's this contracting business that keeps him very busy.
So were you the cow guy from the get-go then?
Yeah.
You were just around him and just loved him? And
Yes, I always enjoyed it, and I didn't particularly care to farm that much.
Yeah.
I always said because Dad made me do it too much when I was a kid. I got a little sour on the farming, but we still put up hay on, we probably have about 2,000 acres of dry land hay ground, and some of it, you always kind of have to keep seeding it or it gets pretty stale, doesn't produce very well, but we'll either graze it or hay it. And and we do, my dad always did conventional farming, which it means like you moldboard plowed it, and you let it sit fallow for a year, and then you planted the crop, and that's the way we did it. And today, her and I, we do no-till. We'll just go in there, spray it with Roundup or glyphosate, and then I just drill it into grass and alfalfa. I can probably, it's probably better done the old school way, but I'm impatient. It's more cost effective to do it that way and get it back into production quicker. That's what our goal is when our farming. So it's just a no-till drill. I don't even own a sprayer. I hire that out. My neighbors do it. And, we should probably get a sprayer, but I don't want to own one if I can avoid it.
Yeah.
And,
probably a good call. So was it just, were you always drawn to the cattle, or were you just around them and you learned to love them?
So, when we were kids, my dad gave, I was the youngest of 3, so he gave my 2 brothers a small, 40 acres of farm ground, and he's like, the crop, I'm going to give you the crop off of that, and it helped pay for college. And he offered me the same thing, and I didn't care to farm as a kid, and I was like, I would rather have cows than the farm ground. He said, fair enough, and he gave us, he gave us a heifer calf every so often, and so I use that to go to college too. So, I was always drawn to cattle over farming for sure. And this country is really marginal for whether you should farm it or not. It's highly erodible. The wind will blow the dirt, and it's it's very difficult to make a living farming. And hardly anybody farms here anymore anyway. There are some, but very few.
Yeah.
Which I don't know whether that's good or bad, but that's the reality of it today.
So going to where'd you go to college?
I went to a community college in Casper College for 2 years. Yeah. And then I went to the University of Wyoming.
Okay.
I got a degree in ag education. Oh, wow. And I student taught. I have to student teach to get your degree finalized,
Yep.
and I never taught actually after that. I substituted a little bit, and that's about it. I'm not tough enough to be a teacher.
No.
It's a very difficult job.
So was the goal always to come back here and ranch?
Yes, if I could.
Yeah.
My parents were big in that you had to have a college education, and I think it's a good idea to have a fallback plan.
Uh-huh.
'Cause I mean, I could always teach school
Yeah.
if it gets down to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, it's a difficult job. There's a lot of teachers in my family. My mom was a teacher. My aunt that is on my granddad's place, she was a teacher. He was a school teacher for years. There's lots of, my granddad was on the school board for like 35 years, and he was a teacher as well. My great grandmother was a teacher.
Wowzer.
So lots of teachers in
Yeah.
our family. My brother married a teacher. So education's big in our family, and I think it's a very difficult job. It's a very important job. It didn't seem to suit me.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, it wore me out. I think I could go and, dig post holes all day and not be as exhausted as I was when I was teaching. So,
Yeah.
I admire people that do it. I just didn't know that was a good fit for me.
So were you looking for a ranch lady when you were in college, or that just happened?
I guess it just happened, 'cause I wasn't even really looking. I don't think she was either. I mean, we met in a bar, we were just young and having fun, I don't think really either one of us were looking, but we did have similar interests, once, you got to know each other a little better. I shouldn't admit we met at a bar, but we did, and yeah, and having similar interests, I think, is important, that we can both kind of hit the yoke at the same time, go in the same direction. And just having an understanding of what it takes to make a living in agriculture it's a low margin business, hard work, and it can be lonesome.
Mm-hmm.
I see people marry a girl maybe that was always raised in town, and they, it's so isolated out here, and they miss a social life, and, she was raised as remote as you can get. They didn't get to go to town a lot, so she's perfectly good with isolation. More so probably than I am.
Yeah.
So it's a good fit. I think it's important that you both have common interest at some level.
Yeah.
Even though her family cattle operation's much different. I mean, it's not much different, but it's different, They don't put up as much hay. They don't have as much hay base, but they graze year round. And that's partly because of the climate there. The wind blows constantly and blows all the snow off. They always have exposed forage to graze, whereas here it'll just snow and set.
Yeah.
And you're forced to feed them or or they'll die.
Yeah.
So that's a little different, and that's just difference in the regions of our state. So Amanda got a degree in animal science too, and
I have a vet tech degree too.
yeah.
So were you were you wanting to ranch growing up, or how?
Yeah, that's kind of what I knew. I was going to be a vet, and I just didn't want to go through that much school. So I did the vet tech thing, and then I was like, I don't want to be done with school yet, so I'm going to go get a 4-year degree.
Uh-huh.
So I went and did that, and of course Neal and I met. But yeah, I think it was, I don't know, I was comfortable with it, I guess, more than anything. I knew it and understood it.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I feel the same way. I felt drawn to it, but I was comfortable in it. It's something I knew and understood, I think, better than, like, say, being a teacher, for example.
Yep.
There was less unknowns, and I think I just felt we could do it, and I think there was nothing else I really wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure she feels the same way. I shouldn't speak for her.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I guess a little history on mine, because this is not a lot of people can probably say this. So growing up, Neal's right, we didn't put up a lot of hay, but we did put up hay, and we put up loose hay. And we would mow it and rake it and buck it up with a sweep, and then we had Dad had a stacker and we'd stack loose stacks. And down there in that country, you have to hang your stacks with old tires and weight it down because the wind would blow it away. So that's kind of something that's kind of cool. Not everybody's can say they put up loose hay like that. Probably not very many anymore. And it was always seemed like hay. Well, I guess haying did take forever, but anymore it's. I don't know, we just have such good machinery. We can put up a lot of hay really fast. And I go home and I look at our fields and they're just tiny little. It just follows the creek bottom and. There's just nothing there. Oh my gosh, how did that take all summer? But it did.
Yeah.
And but it was a good way to grow up.
So go ahead.
Well, when I first met her, and I went to see her folks' place, and they have a beautiful big barn, and she's showing me around the barn, and there was a room, and in the middle of the room is a post, a snubbing post. It was almost cut in half and I'm like, good Lord, what is the snubbing post for? Well, if you got to pull a heifer, she's having trouble calving, you rope her and you choke her down, and I was like, holy cow, I think maybe you could get a head catch, which they've since got a head catch, but when we met them in the early 90s, that's how it was done, and old school.
Yeah,
tie
very.
them up and pull the calf if we needed to, but.
So when did you take over? I guess, what was the transition like from taking it over from your dad? How did that go?
Well, we were very fortunate. Both my parents encouraged us and helped us any way they could. So the transition for us was easy, but that's probably credit to my parents, not me. They were set, they were frugal and saved, and so they were kind of ready, and it didn't happen overnight, really. We've been here since our early 20s, and we have also worked on other ranches and did things like when we were very first married and young, we did other things, but we didn't have many cows, and he just kind of let us grow, and as we grew, he kind of cut back, and then I don't know the year exactly, but in the early 2000s, he dispersed his cow herd, just sold them out. And then they made an estate plan. They hired a lawyer and, did a lot of research, and not just for our sake, but for my two brothers too. So that the ranch will pass on. And I'd like to say that's credit to my parents. It's a lot of work and expensive, and so that, because a lot of times, if you don't make an estate plan, you end up fighting with your siblings over it down the road. Yep. And they didn't want that and made a plan. And so basically they sold it to us, and it made it work. But the reason that it worked so well for us is just because they worked with us, kind of we were all facing the same direction. And it's been our experience watching our peers, that a lot of parents don't do that. They just wait till they die and hope it works out. And
it's hard to give up control, and his parents were very good about it.
Yeah.
And then that takes,
My
dad, they saved. I mean, they were smart. They were smart with their money, and they had a plan, and I think that was most of it, is they had a plan.
Yeah.
Instead of like, oh, we'll just die and let the kids sort it out. That just doesn't work. And
yeah. And my mom and dad still live on the ranch, and in the winters they go to Arizona, and which they deserve that. But I think they're very involved, both of them, and they. One of my dad's sayings is, I could have told you that was stupid, but you never asked, And what he means is he'll let you fail, because you learn a lot when you fail, and it's been good. They've been, like I say, frugal. They saved and had a plan, and they executed the plan. So that's just a good thing we inherited, because like I say, most parents in agriculture are not good at planning. They should be, but it's such a hard conversation to have, and
Well,
And-
it provided us the opportunity to live out our dream.
Yeah.
You know,
And to expand from it too,
Yes.
because since then we bought a place we leased for 18 years next to us, and then this one we just closed on earlier in this year. You know, it just came up and it borders us, and it's a very nice place. And you know, I don't know that you could have taken that risk not having it. You know, so and then too, you know, we make payments to my parents every year, just like you would with a bank, and there's probably some like tax advantages. I'm not a tax guy, but
Yeah.
you know, the whole thing works, and it worked well. But it happened through communication and planning, and those things are hard to do. It's a hard conversation to have, but you know, for
Well,
anybody in
I
agriculture,
think us
it's
all here know in agriculture there's nothing fair and equitable about inheriting and passing it on, and
Yeah.
especially when you got kids that aren't interested in it and kids that are. And
yeah. And then both my brothers love the ranch, you know, and always come and visit, and you know, so it is. It's just a hard conversation to have, and it's one I would recommend everybody work diligently on your farm or ranch, because it's it just makes the whole thing better. And you know, it's just never good to procrastinate and bury your head in the sand and hope it works out in the end. And sometimes it does work out in the end, but
Yep.
a lot of times not, and it can make a lot of animosity and bad feelings. Makes Thanksgiving very awkward sometimes.
Yeah. You don't want anybody to have the knife on that one.
No.
So when did you? So you just started acquiring more cattle, and it was just kind of the commercial stuff.
no, we started with registered cattle. He did have a few commercial cows when we got married, but we
So you're-
dispersed them out. But we started with registered cows, and like I said, it was a potload, like 38 pair.
When did that happen?
In 1994.
94. Were you ever interested in the registered stuff, or?
You know, I never was. I didn't. I did have a roommate in college at the University of Wyoming, Martin Mercer. You know, he's with Paint Rock Angus. That's about the most exposure I've had to the purebred business. It's funny too, and Martin will tell you this. If you were to talk to him, he told you never ever get in the purebred business.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's for crazy people.
And I
can
did.
say it is. It really is. We're crazy.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't have a lot of exposure to it. I didn't know anything about it. We came strictly from a commercial
You know, both
background,
of them.
both of us. My dad didn't, you know, I mean, he would feed straw, and he wintered the cattle as cheap as he could. I mean, they were to work for him and not the other way around. And it's a lot of the same philosophy we have in our purebred herd too, is that, you know, these cows shouldn't just be silage queens. You know,
Yeah.
they should make a living and with minimal inputs on native pasture and without crutches. And that's our philosophy for both of our backgrounds in the commercial cattle business. Is that, you know, if they can't breed back and they can't do it with minimal inputs, you just shouldn't have them. So that's a big part of our philosophy on our purebred cows.
Yeah. So what was so buying the purebred cows? Was there a plan with them to start out with, or what was kind of
Our plan was they were very cheap, and they were pretty thin when we got them too. That's probably why they were cheap. The guy had ran out of pasture. We bought the cows, and we thought if it didn't work out, we can always make commercial cows out of them. So that was our plan going forward. We started very slow and simple. We sold them private treaty, and I learned a lot. It's selling bulls private treaty, which we still do some today, you know, but you get to know your customer a lot better, and it's very time consuming, but it's very much time well spent. We we just sold a handful of bulls, mostly to our neighbors. We still sell bulls to our neighbors today. Most of our bulls stay in probably 100-mile radius, you know, in the counties that surround us. Sheridan, Johnson, and Campbell counties are where they end up, and you know, we're very proud that they do stay local. It's we go into some very harsh environments with our bulls. my in-laws will test them pretty hard. I mean, it's a graze year-round situation, which those bulls winter with the cows, and yeah, they will test them. They run it, up to 8,000 foot elevation in the summer on the Laramie Plains. We sell to some other people around Medicine Bow, Hannah, in that region, in those high plains, year-round. So they get tested in those environments and do pretty good. And they go other places too. But if you can survive in those environments, usually any other environment they go into, like into South Dakota, where you get into more farm country, they're going to just do well. You can't help but do well when you get into those lusher environments. So
So you started out with 38 pairs, and now where have you taken it, and were you AIing those cows right away, or did you kind of work your way into that?
We did AI. My dad actually AI'd his heifers, his commercial heifers, as a kid, and especially as I got more interested in it, and so we started AIing there. So I'd had a little exposure with at least AIing. So no, the first time, in fact, AI technician told us not to even try to AI them because they were too poor. But we did anyway, and we didn't settle very many because they were extremely thin. But no, we've always AI'd basically every female that we give them an exposure to the AI. They don't all settle, but and we haven't done a lot of embryo work, but we always AI. So we have about 600 head of cattle, if you can include the bred heifers, I guess. And so, like this year, we got a very good AI take on our bred heifers, and you never know. It was bad weather, and yet our conception was pretty good. Every cow, like I say, gets exposed to AI, and then typically we give them one shot at AI and then one cycle with the bulls, and if they don't conceive in that, then we just sell them. This year, just because we bought the ranch, we need to expand a little bit, so we went like two cycles with the bulls, and we would rather just raise these cows from within than go out and buy other purebred cows. That typically doesn't work for us. They don't do well here. And we've tried it and a number of times, and it usually doesn't work out. So it just seems better if we just raise our own, and it's better for us that way.
So you're running 600 cows with the bred heifers. So and you're doing a bull sale now? Is that what you're doing? So how does that? Or I guess let's go back first. Like, when do you calve, and how does that?
Oh no, go ahead. I was just going to tell you the history of the bull sale.
Okay, we'll come back to that for sure. So when are you calving? When are you doing all that stuff?
So we calve. Our heifers will calve in the end of January, first part of February. So, and then our cows will start in March, and we do them in 3 groups just so that to fit them through our facility, So, and then our young cows will start, towards
a week after the old cows. So
so they kind of overlap, but just to facilitate the breeding of them, the AIing of them.
Our facilities just can't handle all of them at once. Well, and we lack labor a little bit. It's Neal and I, and we do have a hired man, but trying to calve 400 cows through the shed.
Well, and then you'd have to get several AI technicians, and it's just simpler to just do it in these 3 groups and do it that way.
Well, and if you have bad weather or something when you're calving, you don't have them all calving at once.
It
just makes good sense. It's kind of labor intensive, but
and our calving can be labor intensive because we calve a little early. So, we have barns, and if it's inclement weather, they're going to calve through the barn, and that can make a lot of labor. And then they're all synchronized from the AI, and they'll come quick and make a lot of work
20,
out of it.
30 a day, and it's a lot. That's a lot of pins to clean, a lot of straw to haul in and out.
And typically, we don't calve them through the barn. They calve out on pasture, and that's the best way to do it. It's just better.
These last few winters have been hard.
That's better on cows and cowboys, and we just
marriages.
So it's best when we can just drive out there, tag them, weigh them, and leave them be outside, but
Yep.
just, we've had a couple winters in a row where that's not been the case, so, it's luck of the draw on the weather and
Yep.
that time of year. We would love to calve probably in a May-June type of calving situation. It's just really hard to change our whole bull sale
Yep.
thing. It would be a total changeover. It might be something we do someday. It's something we've certainly thought about at great length. And this last year we kept some fall calvers, just a small bunch, like 60 head of fall calvers, and they calved in August, and it was wonderful. We certainly weren't calving through a barn anyway. They
Yeah.
calved outside.
Nothing
and
froze down. They have their ears. It was
Yeah.
great.
It
Yeah.
was a
It was a
so
wonderful time to calve.
yeah. We don't know. This is our inaugural try with fall cows. But the calving them was certainly easy. So,
That's good.
and then we have of course cleanup bulls, herd bulls that we like, and they don't have anything to do that time of year. It's nice to give them a job, and we're not having to buy excess bulls to get the job done.
Yep.
Give them something to do.
Cool.
Yeah.
The bull sale.
Okay, the bull sale. So when we started out, like Neal had said earlier, we started with a private treaty deal, and that worked. That worked good. We liked that. And then we continued to grow, and it was getting where we could sell a few more. So then we had a sale here at the ranch, and we would pin the bulls outside of Neal's shop. Well, I should back up. We would spend like a week cleaning the shop, trying to get it to where you could see the floor.
Yep.
And then we would gather up tables and chairs. And
When were you doing the sale?
We do it in about February too. February.
So it was warm out and it was easy to clean stuff.
Oh yeah, it was great. It was great.
And
So-
we were calving.
But
Yeah.
the shop did get clean. That was the one good thing.
Yep.
And so we would set pins up and pin the bulls out there, and we also would video the bulls. And so for the sale part, we could put the video out, and then for a couple of years, we just would have people like, what's that called when you just have the sheets of paper?
Supplement sheet.
To bid.
Oh.
Silent auction.
Silent auction.
Silent
There you
auction
go.
type. So we did that for 1 or 2 years, and which was fine, but at the end we were still auctioning them off anyway, so we're like, well, this is crazy. So we hired an auctioneer, and we did it that way for a few more years at the ranch. Just video and put the video up, and have the auctioneer auction the bulls, and that worked pretty good. Well, as we were doing all this, of course, we continued to grow and get bigger and bigger, and it was Neal and I with 2 little boys, and it was, we needed a change. We had to do something. It was either that or we were going to get divorced. It was not, it was just too much. So then we
I think that's a
decided-
common story in agriculture as well.
So we decided we will ship the bulls to a feed yard in Buffalo, and we did that, and we sold the bulls at the sale barn in Buffalo. So we did that for a few years, and it worked pretty good, but you lose a little control on your bulls and how they're
Yep.
getting developed and different things that went on. And then our friend over the mountain that Neal was talking, Martin Mercer at Paint Rock, he took the bulls for a year for us while
Or a
we were,
couple.
was it 2? Maybe it was 2 years, I don't know. But we needed to get set up here again to accommodate the number of head of bulls. We needed to get a water well going and just some different things here to where we could bring the bulls back. And when we finally did do that, that's when we made a big change in how we fed these bulls. We went to it's a custom pellet, and they get free choice long stem grass hay, and we feed this pellet twice a day to them.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a growing ration. This is not a fat ration, and we've learned over the years, and maybe wrong or right, I don't know, but we felt we probably ruined a lot of bulls feeding them too hard.
Yeah.
We ruined their fertility, we ruined their feet, we just ruined the bulls. And so we had to sit back and think, there's got to be a better way, and this pellet's done that for us. We've been tickled to death with it, and these bulls they are grown out. They're not fat. They don't carry a lot of extra flesh, but they're like muscled up,
Mm-hmm.
toned, and
Athletic.
And it's been a great. Our customers have really liked it. They've accepted it very well. The feet are better on them. Everything's better.
Yep.
They're just not piggy fat bulls.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the history of our bull sale. But we've been selling in Buffalo at the auction barn there for,
Probably 10 years.
it's
Or
got to
more.
be close to 10
Oh,
years.
well.
And that's been nice because we did do it at home and it was a lot of extra work. And so we go to that sale barn, it's like you just hit the easy button. All the office work's done, all the clerking. Our job, we just gotta get the bulls there
Yep.
and represent, I guess. And
Yep.
it's worked good. So
how many bulls are you selling now?
about 130.
130.
Yeah, and then we'll hold back about 30 to 40 and sell privately in the spring.
Yep. You selling any females at all, or
Yeah, we do that. We do that in the fall.
you do a female sale in the fall?
We don't do a sale, we just sell them privately.
Okay. Okay.
So,
So how long? So like, when was your first bull sale, or how long you
we bought
been?
them in 94, so I think
94?
it wasn't too long after that. 90,
So 25 years.
97.
Yeah,
we might have
probably
started having
25
sales.
years.
Yeah.
25.
Which doesn't seem possible, but I guess that's how the math adds up.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, and having the sale at the ranch, and a lot of people wish we still did, and it's good. People like to see where the cattle are raised, and it's great, which it's always open. Anybody can tour it whenever, but, there's no place for people to stay.
Yeah.
Porta potties, and people don't like to use porta potties in the middle of winter.
Yep.
It overwhelmed my mom's bathroom.
Yeah, the septic system just couldn't take it.
Cooking the meal, it overwhelmed the electrical system.
Yep.
It's problematic.
It's
the
just-
road getting in here.
Yeah, the
can be-
road can
It's a
be
long
horrible.
driveway.
Yeah.
It is. And these last couple winters, we wouldn't have gotten people in here. We could barely get the bulls off the ranch. So
Yep.
Yeah, and so selling them in Buffalo, at least from our perspective, it's just so much better. And Buffalo's a beautiful place. You just came from there. It's
Yep.
there's shopping, there's a place to eat, there's ample motel rooms because of the tourism that goes through there. And so that time of year, tourism's pretty slow.
Yep.
And so it's really a good fit for us. We're probably not going to change that unless something drastic happens, because it's just been a very, very good fit. And a lot of bulls get sold to that barn. I mean, from this whole region, they all pretty much go through there.
Oh, yeah?
It's a lot of cattle go through that barn. So, but they're very good at what they do. They're very well ran. Like she says, the clerking, everything is kind of done for you. It's an easy button for sure.
Yeah.
We probably should have done it sooner, but we're hard-headed, I guess. It took us a while to get around to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where does Powder River go from now? What's the future look like for you guys?
Well, one thing we're probably going to do, we've done some embryo work, but we'll probably get a little more aggressive on embryo work. And our rationale for probably doing embryo work is, our whole breed probably has a foot problem. We're big on having very solid, good-footed cattle. And even now when we try to really select for that, and maternal and those sorts of things, and good udders and structure overall, but I think in the last 25 years, I've seen the feet get really bad in the Angus breed. It's something I don't like to see. But so we have bad-footed cows, but they're still productive cattle. They can walk. It's just their feet aren't right. And I'd like to get flush a very good cow and let those cows carry a good-footed calf.
Yep.
And then, if they're open, just get rid of them and be good riddance as far as that goes. But that's probably a big change we're going to make in our immediate future, is to anything that's not
Why do
good
you
enough.
think? Sorry, but why do you think the breed kind of went bad footing?
I don't
Oh,
know if people just kind of quit paying attention. I think
Yeah.
they got so caught up in production and
in numbers,
carcass numbers and that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. They kind of forgot.
The basics.
The
the basics, yes. And I would agree with my wife's assessment on it is, the Angus Association has all these numbers, and people are about buying numbers. And we live in the West where, they still look at the cattle and they have to function. They have to be structurally right. And of course, that's our goal. That's been our goal from the beginning. Not that we don't look at DPDs, but I do. It's just definitely not our focus, our priority. But I think the reason that the breed went bad was by chasing those numbers and quit evaluating cattle. Phenotypically, you have to look at what you're doing. And embryos do this too. They're chasing the number on the page rather than looking at the cattle, and it probably contributed definitely to having these foot problems. And so, irregardless however we got there, we don't want to be there. I'd like to have as good a foot on these cattle as we can have, and traveling rough country, it's important, and it relates to foot rot. Cattle are a lot less prone to get foot rot when they have proper foot shape. So, I don't know, there's an EPD for foot scoring, I don't know, because hopefully it helps, but, we're going to take care of it by flushing some very good footed, good uddered, structurally correct cattle that are good mamas to kind of the type of cattle we need, and let them carry those cattle. And so we're excited about doing that. And as far as the future, I don't know. My boys are too young to know whether they're going to want to go on with this. They'd have to be a little crazy if they did. And that's all right. It's treated us so well. We love our life. And it's not always peachy and roses, but by and large, we enjoy what we do very much. And maybe one of my boys will be interested, maybe not. We don't know. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Do they show any interest now at all, or?
Yeah,
A
our
little,
our
yeah.
oldest boy, he doesn't. He's told us flat out he does not want to do this for a living, and that's okay. Our youngest son, Chance, he's more interested in it. So time will tell.
Yeah.
And it's our dream. It doesn't need
That's
to be
right.
theirs.
Yep.
It's,
And they, we want to encourage them to go to college, get a degree, and then
maybe
Probably-
get a job off
yeah,
of the ranch. They might appreciate it.
Yeah.
yeah, my brother-in-law, her brother, he insisted that his son work off the ranch for a number of years before he came back, and he did, and he came back, and now he's on the ranch, and I think that's probably a good idea to have. You should go see the world, try other things,
Yep.
and if you really, really want this, you can come back. It's such a hard life, and it's a great life, great way to raise a family, but the margins, like you say, are very thin, and you'd better be committed, so
Yep.
we would expect the same from either of our boys if they were interested, to make sure that this is really the direction you wanted to go. And I'd hope I'd be as good as my parents about encouraging them and helping them and get out of their way. That would be hard because her and I might be a little more controlling than we should be, but I'd hopefully I could learn that example from my parents and let them have free reign. Not free reign, but I think you got to kind of help mentor them along, but and stay out of their way a little bit. Let them try something that's maybe unorthodox or different than the way you've always done it.
Yeah.
So, and what we do is vastly different than the way my dad operated it, and that's what he said. If you keep doing the things the same way I did back in the 70s, you'll go broke.
Mm-hmm.
So, he always encouraged you to try innovative things, different things. You just have to think outside the box, I think, and
Yep.
try different stuff.
So is your family, so your brother's running the ranch now?
Yeah. They took over. My dad died in 94.
Oh,
Died in
wow.
94. He lost his arm in 79. He was grinding corn and caught it in the PTO shaft. And they had an 8N Ford. Thank God it was an 8N Ford. It killed the tractor. That's probably what saved him.
Yeah.
But,
Wow.
so he lost his arm in 79, and then he died in 94. And I don't know if it was kind of related to that. We didn't have anything done. But so my brothers and my dad's folks and my mom, we formed a partnership down there because we weren't
Married
we
yet.
weren't married yet. But anyway, and then I married, of course, moved off, but they took the ranch over and they paid off the debt on that place and have continued on. And now of course, their kids are getting old enough now. They're showing interest in coming back. But it's like anything in agriculture. You can't all eat out of the same little pie.
Yeah.
You either got to get bigger or go do something else, and they're having their own struggles, I suppose, in that regard too. But the ranch's still there. It's fifth. I'm fifth, so their kids are the sixth generation on it, and it's it's still going.
Yeah. Well, that's good. So speaking of the future, then, what do you think of the beef industry currently as we stand now? What do you see the positives or challenges or?
I think there'll always be, I don't think it'll ever go away. This is the optimistic side of me, because there's land like this that obviously you can't farm, and you have it in big farm country too. So there's always a place for beef cattle. They're taking advantage of that land that it has no other use, basically. And along with that, you have good wildlife habitat. All those benefits of running cattle, it's a good relationship. It's good for the land and everything like that. Now, the challenges that I see is concentration in the packing industry is not healthy. And through that is the elimination of independent cattle feeders. And of course, that's the only way you get any real cash trade to set the value for the cattle that the packers already own prior to harvest, So when they finally kill off every independent feeder left in America, I guess we'll all be like chicken farmers and hog farmers. You're just going to work for the company store. And so concentration in the packing industry is a huge challenge we're going to face. I think differentiating our product, our beef from foreign beef, is paramount. We had country of origin labeling for 12 years, I believe, and then they struck it down. And people argue whether it helped or not. I don't know. I'm probably not as versed on whether it helped or not. Of course, I believe it did. And even if it didn't, who wouldn't want to know where your food comes from? I think any consumer would like to know where it came from.
It's kind of where this podcast is trying to do.
Yeah. So I'm a big believer in country of origin labeling. Whether it even helped our cattle market or not, I think it's a good idea. Our t-shirts are neat, it tells you where they come from. Everything you buy, it tells you where it came from, other than beef. It's insane. But it's the packers.
Never thought
again,
of it that way, but that's interesting.
Yeah, our packers like it that way. You can import Brazilian beef, blend it right in, get the USDA stamp, and the average consumer has no idea that that's where their beef's coming from. I don't have any problem with Brazil selling beef in our country. I think it should just be labeled that way. That's all I'd ask for it. Say Canada, very similar system to ours. I think you could put a big maple leaf on a Canadian steak. It's going to sell very good in America, and I have no problem with it. Just differentiate the product. That would be a huge thing that we already had as a law in our country and did away with. The World Trade Organization didn't like it, but packers didn't like it. It got in the way of profit, and they do have to make a profit, but I don't think they need to have that much control. Probably encouraging smaller packers to a small mom pa packer processing plants would be huge in leveling that field a little bit, but there again, low margins, super high labor force required.
And just so many regulations and stuff to where it's almost impossible for a common guy to step out and open a processing plant.
And same way with a feed yard. If you want to be an independent feed yard, you have to, you work like a slave, high labor, low margins, and then you're at the mercy of those packers at the end of the day. So the rancher, he wants to sell his calves for as much as he can get, and that packer wants to squeeze back as much as he can, and they're really at their mercy. And like I say, they're your only guard against just the packers having total control, to where they'll just tell you what they're going to pay for the cattle and what else are we going to do. So, and there's government regulations on packers that a small packer can't live with, and they get a pass on. It's just really big political problems that are hard to solve. It's not going to be an easy fix, but like I say, country of origin labeling, we could certainly make that fit to where it would fit the World Trade Organization rules and still label our product and differentiate it. Would be a very simple, easy fix that should happen. those things are never easy.
Well, I would
but
just think the housewife would just like to know,
Yeah.
yeah.
you know, what am I feeding my family?
And probably what might instigate this to happen, and this is terrible, is some horrible foot and mouth disease or some E. coli problem coming in from another country.
Which is scary, because then it affects your domestic herds, and,
Yeah.
is that what it's got to come to before
We
we wake up enough to say, gosh, maybe we need to.
see where this product's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and I went into that earlier too about functionality, like an Angus breed. I think these great. We shouldn't throw the baby out in the bathwater chasing numbers and EPDs, and so we're always into the functionality of the female and longevity and being able to really make a living off what nature provides on native range rather than chasing the EPDs that really don't do that much. They're a great tool, they can help you guide in your selection process, but by and large you just have to be, I guess our feeling is we're a little more old school in breeding cattle that are going to make you a living on the ranch rather than look good on paper, because
Yep.
there's more substance in that.
So you talked about it probably a little bit, but what would you want the average consumer out there to know? What do you think they're missing? What information do you wish that they had at their disposal?
Well, that I don't think cows are horrible for the environment. I think they fill a need. They use these lands that can't be used for any other purpose. And prior to that, there was buffalo running around here, and cows get a bad rap because they belch methane or whatever, which I guess they do to some level, but it's been blown way out of proportion. I think probably that we are as a low input, low carbon footprint operation as you can be, and I think most ranches are. It just gets a bad rap that way. I guess that's my opinion. It's crazy, and that never gets heard, I think, outside of agriculture.
I can't exactly remember how it goes, but it's a saying on Facebook about farmers and ranchers providing our citizens with the safest product ever, and just scrimping by with, you don't make a lot of money do it, but you're providing a safe product, and yet everybody thinks you're trying to kill them.
Yeah.
And I guess it's just an awareness. Like, they could come and live it for a week
Yeah.
to see what it. I mean, we're just trying to make a living just like they are.
Yeah, and buy everything retail, sell everything wholesale, and pay the trucking both ways. That's agriculture in a nutshell, and it's a very hard way to make a living.
And historically, you look back at the nations that, like, through the world wars and stuff, their ag economy it went away, and they couldn't feed their people. And if you can't be fed, you don't have a people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important. It's probably the most important sector of all industries, but yet we're not appreciated for one. And then you don't make a lot of money. It's more about the lifestyle than the money. But
Yeah, and politically, rather than some sort of subsidy or anything, because they don't seem to work in grain or dairy or poultry or any of those industries, I would rather like to see our government spend our money in open markets globally rather than try to subsidize a producer, because it just goes contrary to the way we feel and think. But I'd like to see them, open up these markets, just give us a chance to compete on that global market with other people. I think that's the best thing politically we could do for our industry.
Well, we have a superior product in the United States, and
it's safe and probably superior in, and we have that ability to feed cattle and get them marbled in that quality grade so good that most countries, it's grass-fed beef. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but we have that ability in America to really produce high quality beef that's in demand wherever it is.
Well,
We just
people are
need to
willing to pay
differentiate.
for it, obviously, because the retail market sure never went down after the cattle market did. So,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, people are wanting the protein, and it's a wonderful protein to get. So,
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what, as you guys said, you guys had a very fortunate opportunity with your parents to take it over. So what advice do you have for young people out there that want to get into the beef industry? What would you tell them?
Well, I'd reiterate that you better really want to be in this industry. Like, you've got to be committed. And then, probably get a mentor that you know and trust and that'll help you with it, whether it's a family member or a neighbor or whatever like that. And read a lot and, try to be as knowledgeable as you can going in. Go in with your eyes wide open. Don't have a pie in the sky attitude about it. There are some harsh realities that you're going to run into, and I guess don't overdo it on fancy machinery. An old tractor can get it done just like a new tractor can, especially when you're starting out. Is just don't go in too far into debt that it's insurmountable. And we all like cool cars and
you
stuff.
don't have to do it all in one day.
Yeah.
Build into it. I think something that's important with our future and our little visit just within your own family is it's this generational turnover where his folks were good, but there's so many they're either unwilling, unable, I don't know, but estate planning is so important. If we want to really keep young people into agriculture, it needs to be them kids probably that are raised in it a little bit, because and that older generation, they've got to step up and let their kids do it and hand it over. Because just like you say, you get to a certain age and you're like, gosh, I'm 45 years old. I don't want to take a lot of debt right now. And my kids are about out of school. When you take it over at 22 and you've built it throughout that life, that's one thing. When you have to step into it at 45, 50 years of age, it's a lot harder to do. And we're losing a lot of that because people aren't willing to, come on, kid, it's your turn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's an important thing too, and that comes from estate planning and just being educated in how to do it and a willingness to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's sad to say, you've an individual like you wanting to do it so bad, but you can't step out and buy it.
Yep.
How?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's tough.
It is. It's very tough. And it's sad. It's very sad.
Yeah, and we need young people in
And
agriculture.
we do. We need them terrible and
Desperately. And yeah, looking forward into the future, I think people might have to step out and get young people that are not their direct descendants, and maybe some kid that maybe had too many siblings and the farm isn't big enough, maybe bring them in, give them a chance. He probably has the knowledge, or he or she might have that knowledge and skill set and the desire to do it, and yet not the opportunity. And maybe those older farmers and ranchers that don't have kids that are interested, it maybe take on one of those young people and say, here's your shot.
Yeah.
Give it a go. It's really a lot easier said than done. There's a lot involved in that, but in this business, is a super high, land is such a huge capital investment. All of it is, and the cattle are high, and
cattle and machinery and
everything, is high, and it's just so hard to get started too. It's almost insurmountable. It's not insurmountable. It's just very difficult. So, anything we could do to encourage young people to do it instead of it discouraging them, and all they hear is that it can't be done, which you should say, oh, it can be done. You should be honest and say it's going to be difficult, but it can be done.
Yeah.
All in the way you go about it,
Yeah.
Like you say, thinking outside the box, trying different things, and like intensive grazing, is something we've used a little bit, and it's it certainly works very well given certain situations, and it comes with its own challenges, like trying to water that many cattle in a small area all at once, because it's in the summer it's hot and they all want to drink all at one time, and it, like, your little well won't keep up, and
Yeah.
so we've had to do some water development to, make it to where you can water those cattle in one spot. It's challenging. It doesn't happen overnight. It's just a
Yeah.
lot of work.
Earlier you said you mentioned wildlife. So and just driving in here, I can't count how many antelope I saw.
Yeah.
So what is your take on wildlife on your place, and do you allow people to hunt, or what's your view on hunters and stuff like that? Do you have problems with that at all?
Well, we hire an outfitter, and this is pretty recent for us, but it's been a great fit for us on hunting. And then the outfitter and I, we have a meeting every year and sit down, visit how many animals he thinks he should harvest, and we keep that number very low. We want a very robust wildlife population. I like to just see them. He's done something that I had never really considered, but he does management hunts, they're called. So a smaller deer that's kind of got narrow horns, and so he charges his hunters less to harvest a deer like that, to kind of keep him out of the gene pool and maybe let these bigger ones breed, and hopefully you're helping the genetics of these deer get better, and antelope in the same way too. And so as far as hunting goes, it causes a lot of conflict. Lots of people want to hunt, and they think, oh, you got all this country and we'd love to hunt. And that's part of the reason I went with an outfitter, is because that puts that, I guess, the conflict on him instead of me. I don't like to have conflict in my life, and it creates a little conflict, and I can avoid it that way with having an outfitter. That's kind of how we arrived at having the outfitter come. And plus, that's what he does. It's his business, and he's very good at it, and they're committed to it and take it seriously. And what do you think on the hunting?
Oh yeah, well, and maybe not just in our situation, because hunting's not a big priority in our business plan, but a lot of the ranchers around here, it is, and they sell, antelope and deer hunts, and it becomes a large part of their livelihood, and I'm good with that. And it's just, we just don't want to have to deal with the hunting and the people, and we got plenty to do that we don't feel that we need to do that. So the outfitting thing's been good, and
Yeah.
it was a good decision.
Wyoming has a lot of public land, state and federal land, and there again it can create a lot of conflict because of the way the land, there's a lot of landlocked federal land or state land, and then people can't get to it, and there's a lot of people, and there's a lot more people that want to access that land than the old rancher that don't want to let them on, and it creates conflict and trespass issues, and it's a whole headache. And so there again, just a reason that we have an outfitter. But I think good grazing produces good wildlife management. What's good for your cattle, the place you drove in here today, we mainly winter cattle in here, so we don't graze it in the summer. It lets the grass grow to maturity, and our good on our hay ground is it's been hayed, and then the green comes back up. The deer love it, What's really good for the cattle are good for the wildlife, they.
On the water development that we've done, and
water development helps wildlife too, not just deer and antelope, but birds and everything, So we I like to see them.
Yeah, as you can see, the ranching keeps the wildlife pretty happy.
It does. Like I said, there must have been 80 antelope on the way in. It was just, they were everywhere. It was crazy. And there was deer literally right by that shed when we pulled in. So it's just, it's crazy.
Yeah, we're not big hunters, but we don't mind hunting. It's just, it can cause some conflict with the private land and that sort of stuff. And you would, some people it's a big part of their business plan.
Yeah.
Is the hunting and the money they can make from it. But
yeah.
Well, I know you guys are busy, with snow coming soon.
Yeah.
So
Tomorrow.
I know you guys got a lot to do here yet this afternoon. So, but I just want to say thank you so much for letting me show up here and sitting down and talking with me. I know it was very short notice, and a friend of a friend, I guess, a mutual friend of ours, gave me your number, so that's kind of how I found you, and I'm glad you said yes. And yeah, it was. You got to see the bus, and
Yes, this has been fun.
It
I'm
has
glad-
been.
I'm
Hopefully
glad.
we'll see you
I'm
again.
going to recommend somebody to you when we get done.
okay, perfect. But once again, just thank you guys so much for allowing us to come out here and check it out and sitting down and talking to me. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, and
And thank you for doing this because you've
Yeah, for
Yeah.
spreading the story of
Yes.
agriculture.
It takes and to travel in a bus with your family and kids and you're young and what fun! What an adventure! But thank you because you're spreading the word and we need that.
well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. So I'll let you guys go, and we'll go do some work.
All right,
Perfect.
thank
Sounds
you.
Good.
Thank you. There you go, folks. That was Neal and Amanda Sorenson of Powder River, Angus. Like I said before, I really do appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to listen to this podcast. It really means a lot. This is a complete side project, fun little passion project of mine, and I really do enjoy it, and I'm glad you guys can enjoy it as well. So if you get a chance, I would really appreciate a rating, 5-star rating on Apple Podcast or whatever network you use to listen to podcasts. And like me on Instagram and Facebook. It really helps spread the word and share it with your family and friends. And let's keep this thing rolling. So thank you so much. Have a great day and safe spring, guys. Bye.